All right, so welcome, Joanne, and for the others that join us as we take this train out of the station and get started for our session today with Emily Oberg of Yumu, who is going to be talking with us today about how to navigate through this pandemic disruption that we're having and how do we continue to just put a focus on learning and how to do that with this, what we're calling new normal and just beyond whatever the new normal will take us to, right? And so I am Rosa Espinal, current past president of the ATD Central Florida chapter. And with me is our guest speaker today, Emily Oberg. And for the rest of you, this is our current motley crew of crazy volunteers who I love to work with. You see all their beautiful faces, and inside they are just as beautiful people, and they love learning. They're really passionate about learning, and that's why they volunteer with us here at ATD Central Florida. So you can go to our website and learn more about them. Additionally, what we do here is all focused around the ATD talent development capability model. We brainstorm and come up with ideas of what can we bring to members that would enhance their learning and help them in the workplace. And that's how we came up with the idea of let's reach out to Emily. She's really great. Yumu's a great organization. And how can their topics benefit our learners? And what she's going to discuss with us today actually falls under the competencies of building your own personal capability, also under the developing professional capability, because it does touch on instructional design, how you deliver training, how you facilitate that, as well as being future ready. So getting your organization future ready. So it's actually touching on all of those three areas of capability. And so without further ado, I do see we have a few more people that have joined. So welcome, you guys are right on time. Emily, take it away.
Awesome. Give me a second to navigate the sharing changes. See if this worked. Haha, lovely.
There we go.
So thank you so much to everybody that has joined. This session might be a little bit different than things you are used to. We are going to do some interactive communication. We might call people off mute at some points in time, and also we'll be using our phones to do some back and forth. So grab your phone right now if it's not next to you. I know mine is like a third limb. It's always here. And I'm going to navigate you to our first little poll of the day. So grab your phone. You're going to go to this website that we see on the bottom, number 456.umu.com. And there's a couple of questions there about our current situation and familiarity with the topics that we're going to go over. Go ahead and grab that. I see Joanne is typing. We'll leave this slide up here for just another second to have everybody get in. Again, it's 456.umu.com. And go ahead and start answering those questions once you get it up. I'm going to continue introducing myself, give us a little bit of an overview, and then we'll dive into and see what you had to say. So my name is Emily. I'm coming from a company called Yumu. Yumu stands for You, Me, and Us. So we are an AI-enabled learning platform that puts things like learning, skill practice, and training reinforcement into one convenient place. So it's a nice all-in-one type of system. We have offices around the globe and work with a lot of different companies. So this pandemic was really interesting for us to be working with so many different companies as the situation first started growing out of Asia, seeing how companies were dealing with it there, how it came to the United States and changed things here, and even in Europe as they're able to do more of a return to work. It's been shifting. So I think there's a lot of things that we're going to get into today that'll be helpful. Me personally, I am calling in today from Portland, Oregon. So we are Not a very big time difference. It's bright and early, 9 a.m. For me, but very excited to be here with all of you. I've helped a bunch of companies modernize their learning experiences, move to virtual, embrace micro-learning, and also do some stuff with artificial intelligence. That's been really cool. So very excited to be here with all of you today. And before we dive in, I wanted to talk about this topic. We're talking about disruption in the new normal. And I really like this word disruption because we've been talking about it, I feel like literally forever. In the past couple years, I've seen disruption everywhere. ATD is talking about disruption, and Training Magazine is talking about disruption. Just Person is talking about disruption. SHRM, everyone. I remember one of the most recent ATD tech knowledge conferences, they had a disrupt room where we were all looking at this cool technology. And so if you had asked me last year or 2 years ago what disruption meant, I would have said, like, this is XAPI, how we're integrating lots of things, or artificial intelligence, virtual reality, chatbots, really things that only a small percentage of organizations were doing that we thought were really cool. But that's not how I think about it anymore. I think we have truly, truly, truly been disrupted by the outside forces. It's a lot less machine learning and cool things. And now it's like working from home, back-to-back meetings, kids in distance learning programs, just all the craziness. Like, we have truly been #disrupted. But there's a lot of hope in this. I feel like even if the world has gone crazy, in terms of our industry, this is actually forcing a lot of executives, a lot of companies that maybe were a bit slower to embrace the training changes that we all wanted to implement much earlier. I feel like everyone is finally coming around to this idea. So let's use this time, try and put the world away and figure out how we can leverage this moment and make the most out of the things that we want to do to make learning experiences better. So we did get into that poll. Hopefully all of you have done it by now. Let's see what you had to say. Adjust here. Awesome. We had a couple of people fill it out. If you haven't answered all the questions yet, go ahead and finish it now and hit submit, and we'll see that this number will change. Perfect. Let's get into it. So the first question we asked, just where is everybody? I know this has changed a lot over the period. So some of us are working from home, but a lot more of us are slowly returning to work. It's not a full return to work, but we're doing both. We're in the office sometimes and we're at home sometimes. Much different than it was a couple months ago. So the constantly changing situation. Okay, we are decently experienced with blended learning. It's lovely. And we've done flip training. Oh my goodness, wonderful. This is, I feel like, one of the things that is most helpful to people right now. Everyone's really competent on this too, doing virtual role-playing, doing practice activities, either had done it already or is trying to figure it out right now, which is excellent. We're going to talk about this a little bit more. A lot of different attitudes around leadership. Perfect. So these are the different topics we're going to cover. And lastly, I wanted to know about have you ever heard of Yumu before? What is your level of experience? So we have a wide variety, which is lovely. We're going to be interacting with it quite a bit today. So this presentation is going to be partially content, and we're also going to dive into the system a little bit and look at some cool things. I want you to walk away with a good understanding of some things that you can do. Excellent. I'm going to tee up the next question. that we'll get to in a second. And let's dive into it. For the rest of the presentation, I'm going to turn off my camera so I can really focus on the different things that are going on. For all of you, if you like keeping your camera on, love it. I enjoy seeing your faces. If not, feel free to turn it off if you're more comfortable. So today I really wanted to focus on blended learning. Even though we are very experienced with it, sometimes it can be helpful to examine this from another lens. So we're going to look at how it helps us to move online quickly if we haven't already, create community is one of the big things that people are lacking right now, and also practice, because it's something that's very difficult and a little bit awkward to do in a virtual environment. And of course, we'll do questions at the end. So moving online fast. I think at the beginning of this pandemic, a lot of us were being tasked to convert instructor-led training to virtual training very quickly. And I'm sure it was very kind of difficult. A lot of in-person activities don't always translate to virtual very well. Sometimes our organizations aren't sure how to use the virtual tools. I know a lot of people had to invest a lot of time in teaching people how to use Teams or how to use Zoom. And conversely, taking something that is meant to be done in person and turning it into e-learning can be pretty tricky. I mean, according to ATD, it can take anywhere between 40 and 140 hours to create an hour of e-learning, depending on the level of interactivity. So I don't know about you, but I do not have even 40 extra hours in the day. I'd love to come, since we have such a small group, would anyone like to share some of the big challenges that you faced early on in this time around transitioning to virtual?
Everyone is able to unmute themselves as well.
Perfect.
So I do see that Joanne put in the chat adoption.
Adoption of what, Joanne?
It was user adoption and also just getting people on the same page of the value of, hey, usually I'm dedicated this time if I'm doing an ILT learning, and oh, now it's a virtual meeting, so I can kind of hide behind the scenes.
Right. Oh, it's virtual, so now I can check my email. Or I don't really need to be here. I don't need to be engaging.
And then I see David put the challenge was that they thought the leaders could share the same Zoom account. Yeah, we had that one too.
Really? Saying, oh, yeah. We'll just get one. Everybody can share. It'll be fine.
And Carlene has not technologically ready, so the infrastructure was not there.
Mm-hmm. So similar probably to David also. If you think you can use one Zoom account, you do not have the technology infrastructure to support what you want to do.
And I can share also that we actually faced all those same challenges. The Zoom one was just hilarious that they thought we could do that. And then getting folks, we had those folks that were like, okay, I'm in, what do I do? And we're, really eager to learn more and receptive and engaged during training sessions. And then, you had the other ones that really could care less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was speaking with I know when we first transitioned, I had always been meeting with people virtually anyway. But after the transition to working from home, it was just back to back to back to back meetings. I felt like there was no break sometimes even to run to the bathroom. So I heard from other people that their learners were less engaged in virtual trainings and webinars, even if they had been doing them pre-pandemic. That the level of engagement just dropped because everyone was so burnt out. Was anyone doing virtual learning and experience something similar? Harleen says yes.
Yeah, we did at Career Source. We 100% did. People were already, we were doing virtual sessions before that people used to look forward to. And
Mm,
then now post pandemic, it's like, oh, wow, we have to go, we have to be in training virtually because they're so burnt out for meetings.
hmm. Yeah, it's like the same thing. People whereas virtual training before was maybe a unique experience. Now it's just, oh, it's just like another meeting. It adds to that burnout sensation. Perfect. I'm really excited that we have this small group and we can be so we can have all this discussion. Poo poo on everyone who didn't show up. You're not getting the to contribute. But we understand it's a crazy time and not everybody can make it live and participate. So I asked everyone specifically about flipped training because I think this is kind of one of our best friends in this time. It sounds like a lot of us have experience with it already. So I'll move through this maybe a little bit quicker than we need to, or than I might have otherwise, because we all kind of know what it is, right? This is taking traditional kind of training or traditional experiences and flipping it on its head. Learners are in control of the material, and then we still get people together, but when we're getting them together, we make it a really high impact time. We're actively completing practice activities, we are interacting a lot, we're discussing a lot, and the time spent doing instruction is not the same, it is much less done just by the learners. So quick example of how we have had to do this at our company in an onboarding of salespeople. This is something we had previously done in person. And now in the switch to virtual, we've managed to cut down on class time significantly. It used to be about a week-long process where people were learning with us and doing practice and role play activities. And now it's only about a day of real virtual time together. People in preparation are learning about the product, reading a lot of case studies, doing a lot of watching of videos, preparing in other ways. And when we do get together, we're focused entirely on practice, answering questions, doing a lot of discussion. One thing we're doing afterwards also is reinforcement. So it's not just the flipping of preloading a lot of pre-work and then doing activities in the moment. We are also reinforcing a lot. I'm really excited to dive into this a little bit more because it sounded like practice was the area that most of us wanted to learn a little bit. At Yumu, we have this wonderful thing called AI-enabled video coaching that I'm excited to dive into. And what it really does is help people build up the muscle memory of dealing with different types of scenarios, and does it in such a way that it's not a huge time investment, either for the learners or for the other people in that learning experience, trainers, managers, whoever that is. So some of the benefits of flipped learning is being able to really get people when in that valuable time when we are together, making it as engaging as physically possible. So this is not just another meeting. This is not something people can just tune out. It needs to be a very highly engaging experience. The other thing is that by providing learners with the control to review the materials on their own, it allows them to fit it in wherever they are able to, because everybody's situation is different. We have some parents who are navigating children and distance learning. Other people may be caring for a loved one or navigating difficult home situations. And it just allows everyone the freedom to go at their own pace. When we create learning online as well, I think we all know this, it's more standardized, we can reuse it a little better. It also lets us incrementally improve on things if we have the time to do so, which is really, really helpful. I'm sure a lot of us are already doing this, which is amazing. Can we all talk about, is there a program that you have flipped in the course of the pandemic? Let's open it up and talk about it.
Again, everyone's able to unmute themselves and share their comments. So I can say for us, the only thing that we have tried to do something different is Kahoot.
Mm-hmm.
To do something like within our training sessions, when we're facilitating the learning.
Mm-hmm. To add that extra level of engagement. I've heard from a lot of other people that onboarding was something that they flipped. It had been a lot of in-person time, and they really searched for areas where they could whittle it down so that people weren't spending their first couple of days with a company just in extremely intensive virtual learning environments.
Yeah, I'm at UCF College of Medicine, and so we had to really move our entire curriculum online, as well as our new hire orientation. So HR tried to really encourage each presenter to like stick to like no more than 5 minutes, to really cut that time in half to reduce the computer screen time, just because they knew that it'd be a longer day for people to sit there and listen to some of these longer presentations. So we were all tasked with trying to reduce and stick to the important details. And it's really hard to say, well, if we were in the building, you'd be doing this and this and this. Well, we're not in the building. And my department was, primarily responsible also for helping to teach the faculty Zoom and getting up to speed. And now, like, every week new features are coming out. So we're trying to figure out now, how do we stay up and communicate and remind everyone to update their Zoom applications. Because so even some of the minor updates have some pretty big features. So
I remember when they first rolled out that waiting room feature, and all of a sudden no one could get into my meetings. Luckily, I figured it out pretty quickly, but I can imagine if you have 100, 200 staff people that aren't as familiar with the technology, it's going to cause a lot of problems when Zoom launches a new feature that's supposed to enhance security.
Yeah, and breakout rooms aren't, super easy to do either. So we went from having these small group sessions with our 120 students to having to send them into breakout rooms. And then, we normally have faculty and facilitators that walk amongst the tables, and having to train the faculty how to move in and out of breakout rooms and just click that button. Well, you can't really see it. So yeah, it's definitely been a challenge.
Yeah, a lot of these things that we never would have thought of before, we're being asked to adapt very, very quickly. And so on the slide here are a couple of best practices that we recommend that I've seen from a lot of people that make things really successful, especially in terms of larger kind of ongoing programs, but it doesn't have to be just for that. One obviously is using something like a rapid authoring tool. So not making a giant e-learning about how Zoom works, that every single time they release a new feature, you have to upload it, but really looking at very fast ways to create a short video or a very short training piece, so that you can kind of keep up with everything that Zoom is throwing at you. Melissa, how did you guys end up retraining everybody on Zoom as things got released?
Well, we're still figuring that out, but thankfully, like with the students, I'm part of educational technology, so I'm in all of our mandatory sessions with students. So I try to make a reminder, at the beginning of each session to remind them to update. We've tried to set up a Teams account to have like a one-stop shop for faculty, but that didn't really take off as anticipated, because it was just one more place for our faculty to have to go to get resources.
Oh yeah.
So
It's
emails are
too
still
confusing right now.
yeah. So either announcements in Canvas in the LMS
Yep.
when we need to really communicate out to everyone, or just an email still.
Mm-hmm. And there's so many different ways that you could go about it, and each one kind of has its own like pros and cons. Like sending an email, it's wonderful. You get the information out there very quickly, but did anyone see it? Do they know what's going on? It's hard to tell. Versus putting something in the LMS, it might take a little bit longer to create or to get there, but you would have a little bit more certainty. Also, like modality, do you create a little e-learning that walks them through it very nicely and they have to go and click on buttons and do things, or do you make like a PDF that shows people how it goes? There's so many different decisions, and it really all depends on your time and how much you have to work with.
So yeah, some of what
Mhm.
we've done, Emily, is a little bit of the either create a PDF or using our
Mhm.
newsletter, because right now all our staff has a Zoom account. So that's like almost 300 people with a Zoom account.
Mhm.
And but there's only 2 people in the L&D department, which is myself and one other person. So there's
Yep.
no way that we can keep track with everyone. So what we've done is used a newsletter as that source. And that's actually the name of it, is the source, as you know, that source that we use to like send them that info of, hey, Zoom has something new. And, you know, we'll get like a little snippet of it, and that'll be the image that they use, you know, for the newsletter. To say, go check it out, and we'll put a question in there, and then folks are able to put comments on the on our platform, you know, if they checked it out or something like that. And we found that to be like really helpful.
Yeah, integrating not only the content, making somehow very quickly using like a PDF, or there's lots of other ways to make stuff quickly, and then adding something like a quiz or a little discussion area so that you can check, like, do they actually know this? There's a little bit of tracking in it, and also collecting questions, because it's so important right now to get feedback from the outside world, from the front line, from our learners about what they need. There's no way we can anticipate everything for them right now. Cool. So I wanted to show one thing very quickly on Yumu about how you can also use something like this to create content very quickly. At Yumu, one thing that's really nice is that you can take content such as like PowerPoints, PDFs, other existing materials, and just launch it really fast. So I wanted to show you guys this feature we called audio slides, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's an audio voiceover on top of PowerPoint slides. So if you have PowerPoint slides, you can go ahead and upload them. Let me pull a couple. If you don't have PowerPoint slides, Yumu has a couple of built-in little templates you can use. So in this, what we're able to do is start recording an audio voiceover. And Yumu's also recording my screen as I go through this. So it's recording both my audio and whatever actions I'm doing on the screen. So that could be switching between slides. It could also be things like doing a little bit of whiteboarding. And editing tools are also built in. So if I want to pause and think about what I'm saying or jump to somewhere else, add in more materials, I have just enough editing tools to make something really quick that's going to get people the information that they need. And then when I feel good about it, I hit save, and now I have a little video content piece that is ready to go out. So to my learners, this looks just like a video. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but the voiceover that I had said previously is now playing in my ear. So I can create something like with very little effort to just get that information out to people. This is really nice. Any thoughts or questions about this before we move on to the next little topic? Lovely. So I wanted to talk about in this time how we also work to create community. This might not be explicitly what we are being asked to do right now, but I think it's what we as humans and what most of our learners really, really are feeling. The online substitutions aren't, I think we're getting used to them. I know I'm feeling a little bit better about it since maybe April or May, but it's still not exactly a substitute for what we were getting like last year. It's hard to engage people online, especially when they're so burnt out from all of these meetings. If you're dealing with larger groups, like unlike today, if everyone is on mute, and especially if you're doing larger webinars, it's such a weird phenomenon to feel like you're talking to yourself in a room. You don't really know if anyone is listening or what the engagement is, if people are off checking their email. It takes a lot of time to get used to. It's really draining and it's taking a big impact on everybody's mental health. So a couple of suggestions that I have, and then I really want to hear from you guys what we're doing, what some of your suggestions are. So be ready to share. But my first suggestion is having your webcam on. So we did this a little bit at the start. It was amazing for me to see who's here, get a sense of your faces, what kind of environment you guys are working in. And I had mine on for the beginning. You don't really need to have makeup on or have a good hair day or look professional. No one's really looking their best right now. I think we're all a lot more accepting of our authentic human selves. And being open about that really helps to build that sense of connection. So if you're still not used to it by now, if you're really resistant to the webcam, just do it for a little while like we're doing right now. We had it on at the beginning, then we're getting into stuff. Maybe we'll turn it on at the end for Q&A. The most important thing is just to build that connection. Have it on for as long as you are comfortable with, because it really helps. The other thing is creating more opportunities for people to be heard and increasing participation and engagement. So in a live class and instructor-led training, this is all something we're very familiar with. We can play a quick game or do a breakout activity, right? We were discussing that earlier. But a lot of these things can also be done virtually to a degree. And there's one activity that if you're not already doing it, I highly, highly suggest. And that's to ask learners kind of near the end of your session what their biggest takeaway is before they leave. This question is an amazing way for people to reflect and review on what they're learning. I personally have found it to be a great boost to my mental health. On larger virtual sessions, I don't always get to see everybody's smiling face or feel that energy like I normally would in a real room. But as I read through the takeaways, I know that this session was really worth their time and my time because people are getting something out of it. So big, big personal boost for me. Highly, highly recommend it. As for the technology to do this, obviously there's a lot of different solutions out there. Rosa, you mentioned Kahoot. A lot of the virtual meeting platforms have some degree of activities built into them. Like Zoom has a polling feature. I know Articulate Teams probably do some simple polling as well. If you are able to have a producer help you if you're going to be using the technology built into whatever platform you're using, because it can be a little bit difficult to navigate so many things. If you're a solo practitioner and you don't have access to someone like a producer, I would really recommend using something like Yumu that we've been doing a little bit. Another big reason for that, in addition to being able to like set it up early and repeat questions, it's a little bit more easy to handle, is that as we kind of transition to returning to work and changing things up a little bit, there's going to be a new type of hybrid classroom. We're going to have some people joining us virtually and some people in a classroom. Does anyone have this hybrid classroom experience right now? Is anyone moving in this direction? Chat or come on the mic. We'd love to hear from you.
We had it before the pandemic because we have different centers. And so sometimes we would facilitate something at, say, our operations center at the administrative office, and folks from that center would attend our session, but we would broadcast to the other centers, to the other 4. And so it was something we were doing before, and now everything is strictly virtual. It could be whenever we go back to having, offices full of people again, that we go back to that.
Mm-hmm. When you had that mixed environment previously, were you doing polling and other activities that incorporated both groups?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more, so we were using polling, but because the folks, not everyone would have access to a device. It was more where, like just call out or raise your hand, or, it was more discussion type questions, or, quizzing where, first person to give an answer, or first 5, that kind of thing, then when you get some points or something. Because of that, not everyone having access to the technology. It's kind of where we would herd people to a room and not everyone in front of a computer.
Yep, that makes sense. Luckily, a lot of people now, not everyone, of course, there are people that still don't, but most people do have some kind of a mobile device. So being able to leverage technology that works on there, as Yumu does, and I know Kahoot does, there's also a couple others, are really, really helpful. Anybody else have these mixed groups?
I see a comment from Carlene saying, that participation and engagement are key, which is very true. And that just taking your slides and putting them in a Zoom session isn't going to cut it. It doesn't cut it even if it's not a Zoom session. So, but definitely you'll see that people check out as she's putting in her comment.
Yeah, death by PowerPoint, in person or virtual, doesn't matter. People, it does not fly. But virtually they have a little bit more freedom to check out, and often do so. So I want to try out one of these activities also. So everybody grab your phone. Again, we're going to do another one of these little activities. If you did the first one, you should be able to go ahead and refresh your screen to see this new question pop up. If you didn't get to participate in the first activity, come try this one now. On your phone or on your computer, go to the website 456.umu.com, and we'll do a little bit of this best practice sharing. I'm curious what has worked for you guys in terms of driving engagement, building connection, or just other things that you have discovered that are really helpful, that you want to continue with and you think everyone can benefit from. So again, that's 456.umu.com, and go ahead and type something in. While everybody's doing that, Rose, I know you and I talked about this previously, and I would love it if you could share one of the best practices you have discovered for CareerSource Central Florida.
Sorry, I was trying to type at the same time. So
yeah,
one of the things that we've done is we've added more, kind of trying to find out more about people. These are folks that we've been working with forever, but it's just trying to make it more personal, even though we're talking about work business. And so we call it that mindful moment. And so we've added those moments into the sessions. Maybe it's an hour-long session, but we'll have 3 moments where we just like pause and just randomly, like they don't even know it's coming because maybe we were just talking about this process of, and this is step 3, and then we'll go into the next slide and it's like, okay, so what's your favorite movie for movie night, right? And now we're getting to know something about them, and we've broken up that monotony, and everybody now is re-engaged because they in their adrenaline and all that is now, their neurons are in a different place and all that. And so now when we go back to talking about this boring process, they're a little bit more into that process. But they've shared how, they like Disney movies or they don't like Disney movies, or what their favorite Disney movie is, and all of that. And so we've done a lot of those mindful moments. And for me, it's really good it's for us as the only 2 people really responsible in the organization for facilitating the learning to know more about them, so that as we continue to create learning experiences, we can then draw from, maybe Emily said she loves Princess and the Frog, right? And so how do we maybe incorporate some of that into one of those next future questions or whatever that is, So that's what Vicki and I have been doing.
It's like comedians being able to call back to something someone said earlier and just making it more personalized, more relevant to the group that you're actually speaking with. Oh, I love that. Let's see, we had 2 other people submit some responses. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. So pulling this up, it seems you guys are doing things around, maybe I see maybe icebreakers, going virtual, headsets and meetings. Ooh, I'm excited to see what you had to say. Let's break it down. Carlene, thank you so much. So using the whiteboard and our breakout rooms are really good tools. Don't assume everyone knows how to participate in a virtual session. Yes, that's super important. Everyone has different levels in regards to the technology that they are comfortable with, even at this stage. So always taking the time to hold everyone's hand and welcome them into the space and teach them how to make sure that they can do everything. JS says, taking the time to test audio. Yeah, that's super helpful. I know I've had a number of times where I thought I was okay and someone was like, actually, I can't hear you. I'm pretty soft spoken, so that's definitely one for me also. Also icebreakers instead of just jumping into things directly. JS, is there an example of an icebreaker that you have found really helpful that we can all replicate? What's your favorite icebreaker?
Hey, it's Joanne. I can't think of a favorite one right now, but it's usually one that I pass off to one of the participants. However way they do it is great because at least they're contributing to the meeting. So it's great to see, some are done really well.
I love that.
And I was going to say, Emily, with the icebreakers, if you're adding them in, so those breaks that we add, those mindful moments, it's really just where I find a image of maybe like a superhero. So like, maybe a little kid with a cape, and I'll ask them, so if you had a power, what would it be and why? So not a lot of thought process is going into it. It's just something to change up the thing. To break it up. So it's they don't really take a lot of time, but you do have to have the intent of wanting to engage with folks, and it doesn't have to be an elaborate thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, any kind of pause that breaks it up, like just a different topic or something where I'm not talking, we're getting everybody sharing. Absolutely. One other thing, I want to pull back the curtain a little bit on the activity we just did. It wasn't as obvious because we have a smaller group today, but I really love using this particular activity in Yumu. We call it a Q&A or a discussion, where participants get to put in their own response and then also see what other people are responding. So after someone puts in their own response, they can see everybody else's and also do a little thumbs up and show support for different topics. So I really like this component because it gives everyone a chance to share, but also for people that didn't have an opinion, didn't have an answer to the question, didn't have something to contribute, they can still read through what other people are saying and get something out of it. Say, oh yeah, thumbs up, I agree with that. Or, you know what, I wouldn't have written that myself, but that really resonates with me. Gives everybody the chance to participate in the way that they feel comfortable. That's fun. Okay, lastly, we're going to talk about creating more practice opportunities, some technology inside of Yumu that we can use to create practice opportunities, and then we'll open it up to Q&A and see how you guys are doing. So, practice, oh my goodness, this is probably one of the most challenging things right now, and it was everybody's biggest topic of interest. So let's spend some time here. It's something that's very difficult to replicate in a non-classroom environment. There are some activities that simply do not translate. We kind of need to rethink. And other ones like, I don't know, role play, where it kind of makes sense that maybe we could do it virtually, but it's extremely awkward to try and do in a group environment. And if you try and transition it to one-on-one, oh my goodness, no one has that much time. It's hard enough to schedule meetings as it is. So in the quiz that or the poll that we did earlier, it sounds like some people are already doing this, have found some solutions, and others are trying it out. So I want to double down on this, that yes, this is absolutely something we need to find a solution for. It's practice that mirrors the job is extremely helpful in getting people to the point of retention and changing their behavior on the job. There's a couple of studies that go into this a little bit more in depth. For the sake of time, I actually don't want to dive deeper into it. I think suffice it to say, we all know deep down in our hearts that practice is one of the key elements to get people skilled in what they need to be doing. So there's lots of different types of practice that we can do in a virtual environment that we don't need, that can be a little bit different from our normal day-to-day. So because we're not going to have as much in-person time with people, we can look at different types of activities that we can do. This could be something, we could use video to simulate something like presentation skills, conversations, answering questions, holding meetings. If you're training customer-facing people, maybe like call center employees and other things, just having people practice audio conversations can also be really helpful. Or if there is work that they actually need to complete, reporting, filling out different components or technology that they need to get more skilled with, doing things in documents, written forms, working on writing skills is also very, very helpful. So I wanted to show how Yumu is particularly helpful in this area and what you can do with this tool, because we have kind of upped the things that you can incorporate. So Yumu's practice component actually integrates artificial intelligence into practice as well. So what it is, it's we call it AI-enabled video coaching. So learners can get on video, they practice first with the AI and our artificial intelligence, and then they send that video practice off to other people for additional feedback. So those people could be trainers, it could be managers, or it could be their peers in like a social learning experience. And we found that in comparison with other practice technologies that use video, learners actually practice 300% more when there's an AI listening and giving them initial feedback as well. So it's really, really cool. So I wanted to show an example of what that looks like and how you might build something like that. So inside of Yumu, building out one of these AI practice activities is not complicated. From our menu of options, we call it an exercise. And let's say the practice activity is something that we at Yumu ask all of our employees to do, and that's explain how the AI works. So explain Yumu's AI. So in here, I'm going to say what I need people to do, which is going to be, please explain how Yumu's AI works and what it measures. And I'm actually going to teach the AI a couple of things that people should be hitting when they're talking about Yumu's AI. So that's going to be, it actually looks at things like eye contact. It also looks at their facial expression and their body language. Let's just use these three for now. If I have one, I can also add in an example of what good looks like for people to model. So let's say this video is a good example of that. So once that's done, I can give this to my learners. And let's see what it looks like from their experience. So I'm actually going to share my phone screen really quick. Give me a second to navigate there. Perfect. Is my phone screen coming through?
Yes.
Awesome. So here we have that activity that I just built. So we asked people to explain how Yumu's AI works. There's a couple of keywords as a learner. There's that example that I can try and follow. And when I'm ready, I hit start. It has found my face. And now, as soon as I hit record, the Yumu AI is looking at my facial expression, my body language, whether or not I'm giving proper eye contact. You can also see it's monitoring all the words that I am saying. And it's giving me, it's kind of doing an overview of what am I saying? Is this matching with what my trainer asked me to do and asked me to practice? And based on that, it's given me a little bit of a score. So it said I did okay. I got 3.9 out of 5. It said I had a really nice facial expression. I was giving good eye contact, but it couldn't really hear what I had to say. And it didn't see me speaking with my hands, giving a lot of gestures that are going to help to encourage the conversation. So at this point, it's encouraging me to try again, maybe re-record. Can you get 4 out of 5 or 4.5 out of 5? And this is how we see people really taking this further and practicing more. It's pretty interesting.
It's awesome because it's very specific. It was showing, you know, you needed to be more energetic, or so it was very specific in the feedback it gave you. So that'd be great for the learner to know exactly what they need to do.
We found it especially useful in a couple of areas. Sales, for obvious reasons, customer service, again, they're kind of dealing with a set percentage of activities and things that they would see. Another one where we see this really helpful is in actually management, especially for new managers, doing things like giving a performance review for the first time, handling a difficult conversation, a lot of areas where people need to work on their soft skills. It's something that's very difficult to replicate without practicing and being able to interact face to face. So let's open it up to questions. We're kind of coming to the end of our time. So I'd love to hear from everybody a couple of your takeaways and what questions that you have.
All right, don't be shy, everyone. There's only a few of us on here, and you may have some questions. And it doesn't necessarily have to just be about Umu. It could just be about how do you, Emily is sharing what her organization does, but these are things that you can do with maybe other tools. I think Umu is a great tool. At the chapter, we've been using it for several years, and find it to be engaging when we use it. So feel free to ask questions.
Are other things that are challenging from you right now? This is the opportunity, like your peers are here, we are online, we are ready to listen. Joanne asked, how do we flatten the curve on user adoption? I think I know with Yumu specifically, one of the things we have found that's super helpful is really integrating it into the biggest area of need and starting small. So doing it in the area where it's going to be the most helpful. Learners are going to get the most out of it. The team is going to get the most out of the information that's being presented. And then similarly, as you would with any other technology, making sure that there are learner guides available. For Yumu, obviously, we have a lot of materials to help people get familiar with the technology. Having sharing sessions or walking people through things, just like we did with Zoom and Teams, all of those things are super relevant to any tech rollout, I think.
I agree with that. I would say that was what was helpful for us with our rollout of different things was definitely starting with small groups and then moving into the bigger population, because what we gained from that was that, tell a friend, I just used this cool thing. So, there's things that we rolled out, say, to folks that we call in our organization POCs, which are the program contacts. So program organizational contacts. So if I'm in one program and I'm using something and, maybe Carlene is also part of that program, but she's not a POC. So now the POC say, hey, I just used this really cool thing with Rosa. We tried this. And so now that helped us kind of get the word out. We did that when we rolled out our LMS to everyone. And so we had a population of maybe 32 people. And we told them, listen, don't tell anyone. And we did that intentionally because we knew they wouldn't.
Yeah.
We knew they wouldn't. And we're like, listen, you're a pilot group and we want to get it right. So please don't say a word. And like within a week, I had like over 100 emails like, how come I wasn't part of it? And I want to be part of it. And all of that, as well as, so can I be like first on the list for the next group that you roll it out to, so that. So, I would say that that's definitely a great thing is, start small and then scale out. Because, the pandemic forced us to kind of have to do all 250 people, some things right now, rip the Band-Aid, but we didn't have to rip that Band-Aid with everything that we did.
Yeah, when you're able to be a little bit more controlled. I love that tip of like, oh, please, don't tell anyone. Oh, no.
Yeah.
So Rosa, you're already using it. How does it integrate with your LMS system? How was that transition?
So we haven't gotten there yet. Actually, Emily and I are meeting later for bringing this to CareerSource. The way that I've used it in the past has been because Umu has graciously given the chapter a license that we can use. So we've used it in chapter-led sessions, right, to either poll people, ask questions, engage things, or during live sessions, same thing, during our WILD conference, engaging people throughout the day, sending them little polls like, how's your day going? Are you enjoying the conference? And having them like give us feedback of what's the best session you attended, like that. That's how we've used it.
Okay. So you're not using it?
We will be. So I'll be able to answer that question maybe in about, I don't know, less than 30 days, right, Emily?
Yep, that's the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in general, how Yumu integrates with an LMS is we do have an API, an open API that can allow the data from Yumu to flow back into the LMS for consolidated reporting. So that's how most of our larger enterprise clients keep things connected.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm really interested in it because of that feature of the AI for role playing.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we need regardless of if we go back to face. I think that that would really take our learning for folks to the next level. And so that's one of the things I'm really excited about, as well as the interactivity during, you know, those virtual learning sessions.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's so interesting about role play is kind of the pandemic forced us all to realize like, oh no, we can't do role play. But when I talk to people, I'm like, was it really that effective to begin with? Like we have to do it because otherwise you're just sending people out without the practice that they need. But if you only give them 1 or 2 times to practice together in a big group, where they're really not getting a lot of personalized feedback about how they specifically can improve, and you're not reinforcing it over time. I mean, with other materials, we know that doesn't work as well. You can't teach someone Spanish in a week and then say, great, you know Spanish, please go do all your presentations in Spanish.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know why we expect role play to work that way.
Exactly.
So I love the AI piece because it allows us to do it not just in that time, but also like periodically. It can just be a continuous check-in, a regular exercise that keeps us all working.
Correct.
Agree.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for today. This was great. I mean, I now even understand more things about Umu that I didn't before, and have lots of great tips and best practices. And so I really appreciate you and your time today. I wish we had a better turnout, but I think it worked out just great. The group that was on was perfect, and they interacted with us, which is what we like. And you know, so much for the other ones, you know. For those of you still on,
everybody,
these are
so engaged.
Yeah. For those still on, these are those kind of mandatory things that we have to go through during a session. And so if you are not a Power member, you are definitely missing out on a lot. That's how you get the most out of your ATD membership, is being part of the local chapter, which is us, and all the great things that we do, and then all the wonderful tools and knowledge that the national ATD has to share. If you go on their website, use our code, because they do give us dollars back that help us bring great experiences for you. And if you want to help, if you are like-minded, like some of us here on the call, and love volunteering, we always have things that you can do. It can be small projects, large projects, one day, or, you know, lots of days, lots of things for you to do. And these are just some of the upcoming dates that we have things going on. Visit our website for more of that. And again, thank you so much for your time today. Emily, as always, you are so amazing. I am just so thankful for the long relationship we have. I think it goes back to ATD ICE in 2015.
Yeah, that
sometime around there. So thank you again so much for
thank you, Emily.
Just the continued support of our chapter, for Umu's continued support. We are really, really very appreciative.
Good deal.
Thank you all. And thank you everybody for being, again, for being so engaged, for making this more than a presentation. I love this discussion and all the best practices that we are sharing together. I'm not an expert. None of us individually knows everything. We all need to contribute.
But collectively, we're pretty awesome.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
All right, everyone. Have a great one.
Thanks, Rosa. I just joined at the end.
Mary Jane, the video will be online probably in the next couple of days. Okay.
Perfect. I was hoping so. Sorry, I got caught up in meetings, but thank you.
I know. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you both. Good session. Thank you.
Thank you,
Carlene.